Your entire life, you've been graded by a ruler no one ever proved was real. A number on a test, a letter on a paper, a certificate framed on a wall. They told you this was intelligence, but that was just the version that fit neatly into classrooms, offices, and systems that needed predictable people. Real intelligence doesn't live in books. It lives in impact. It's not what you know. It's what bends when you move. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. So did every strategist who shaped history instead of memorizing it. While most people tried to look clever, a few learned how to become dangerous in the quiet way. Today, you're not here to feel smart. You're here to find out where you actually stand. Because there is a ladder invisible, ruthless, and always working that decides who drifts through life and who designs it. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. The crowd. Walk through a city when everyone is in a hurry. Cars are stuck in traffic. People move fast on the sidewalks. Phones glow in their hands like small suns. Look at their faces. Most of them are not angry. Most of them are not happy either. They look busy. This is the first level. Level 1, the drifter. The drifter is not a fool. Some of them are smart. Some went to good schools. Some have good jobs and nice homes. From the outside, their lives look successful. But on the inside, something else is happening. They are not choosing their path. They are being carried by it. Their day begins when the alarm tells them to wake up. They go to work because the system tells them where to go. They believe the news because a screen tells them what is true. They buy things because an ad tells them what they should want. They feel like they are making choices. But most of the time, they are only responding. If you stop a drifter and ask, "Why do you believe this?" the answer usually comes from somewhere else. "I saw it online. My parents taught me that. Everyone says so." Their ideas are not built. They are borrowed. Machiavelli once warned that people who live only in the present moment are easy to guide, easy to push, and easy to control. The drifter lives like a leaf in a river. The water decides the direction. The current decides the speed. The rocks decide where he crashes. And when something goes wrong, he blames the river, the economy, the government, his boss, his luck. He feels like life is something that happens to him, not something he shapes. Deep down, the drifter does not really want freedom. Freedom means responsibility. Freedom means standing alone. Freedom means saying, "This is my life, and I choose this path." That is heavy. So instead, he looks for comfort. He looks at what most people think. He looks at what most people do. And he follows. Because standing in a crowd feels safer than standing by yourself. In the crowd, you don't have to explain your choices. You don't have to defend your beliefs. You don't have to risk being wrong alone. You can disappear into everyone else. The drifter is not weak. He is asleep. And sometimes, late at night, when the noise is gone and the screens are off, he feels it. A quiet question in the back of his mind. Is this really my life, or just the life I was given? That question is the beginning of the next level, the awakening. Sometimes, the drifter starts to notice something strange. He begins to feel like invisible hands are pulling on his life. He sees patterns in the news. He notices how trends rise and fall. He realizes that people often repeat the same opinions in different voices. And in that moment, something inside him wakes up. But he does not become calm. He becomes loud. Level 2, the performer. The performer discovers a powerful truth. If you look intelligent, people treat you differently. They listen more. They respect more. They give attention. So he starts to build a new version of himself. He collects big words, even if he does not fully understand them. He collects strong opinions, even if they are not truly his. He collects quotes from books he has not finished and ideas he has not tested. He wears these things like clothes. At this level, intelligence is no longer something you grow. It is something you show. It becomes a badge on your chest, a mask on your face, a performance for the room. The performer starts to feel higher than the crowd. He looks at the drifters and thinks, "They don't see what I see. They don't understand what I understand." And in one way, he is right. But in another way, he is still trapped. Because he is no longer chasing the approval of everyone. He is chasing the approval of a new crowd. A smarter crowd. A louder crowd. A crowd that claps for clever words and sharp opinions. Machiavelli warned about people who confuse looking good with being good. The performer falls into the same trap. He can repeat what others have said, but when he is alone with a blank page, a hard problem, or a new challenge, something strange happens. The noise stops. There is no script to follow, no quote to repeat, no audience to impress, only silence. And in that silence, he realizes something uncomfortable. He knows how to echo, but he does not yet know how to create. This is the real test of this level, because waking up is not about speaking louder than everyone else. It is about learning how to think when no one is watching. The shift. For a long time, the performer lives for the mirror. Every word is chosen to impress. Every opinion is shaped to be seen. Every moment is measured by how it looks from the outside. But eventually, something inside gets tired. Tired of clapping for itself. Tired of chasing reactions. Tired of living on a stage. And one quiet day, a new question appears. Not, do they like me? But, does this actually work? That question changes everything. Level 3. The Strategist. This is the moment the world stops looking like a crowd and starts looking like a system. The strategist no longer listens only to what people say. He listens to what they want. He no longer studies opinions. He studies incentives. He watches who gets rewarded. He watches who gets ignored. He watches who gets punished. And slowly, a map forms in his mind. He begins to see invisible lines of power running through offices, families, friendships, and institutions. He sees why certain people rise while others stay in place. He sees why some voices are amplified while others disappear. Machiavelli called this the mind of the fox, the one who notices the wire before the trap closes. The strategist starts to ask different questions. Who benefits if this succeeds? Who loses if this fails? Who is afraid here? Who is pretending not to care? Every room becomes a puzzle. Every conversation becomes a signal. At this level, intelligence stops being about sounding right. It becomes about being effective. And the rewards come. He moves faster than others. He climbs higher than others. He finds doors that were always there, but never clearly marked. There are promotions. There are deals. There is momentum that feels almost magical. It feels like stepping out of a slow crowd and onto a moving walkway. But something else happens at the same time. A subtle distance begins to grow. When you start seeing patterns, it becomes hard to unsee them. A compliment is no longer just kindness. It might be a move. An invitation is no longer just friendly. It might be a test. The strategist begins to stand one step back from every moment, watching, measuring, calculating. And because he is always reading the room, he is never fully in the room. Connections become careful. Friendships become strategic. Trust becomes conditional. He wins more. But he also carries more weight. Because the more you understand how things work, the harder it becomes to believe in simple stories. The strategist learns that fairness is often a story people tell, not a rule the world follows. He learns that effort does not always lead to reward. He learns that being right does not always mean being heard. This knowledge gives him power, but it also gives him restlessness. He starts to feel like he is standing on a chessboard where everyone else is moving pieces, and he is watching from above, always aware, always alert, always prepared. Even in quiet moments, his mind keeps running. What does this mean? What comes next? What is the angle here? The strategist becomes hard to surprise, but also hard to relax. He builds success. He builds security. But sometimes, late at night, when there is no one left to read and no game left to play, he feels the cost of this level. Because power gained through calculation creates a strange kind of loneliness. You are surrounded by people, but you are standing slightly apart from them. The strategist has learned how to move through the world, but he has not yet learned how to stand inside it without a plan. And this is the quiet tension of this level. Because once you see the game, you can never fully forget that you are playing it. The front of the room. For a long time, the strategist moves in the shadows. He speaks carefully. He plans quietly. He pulls small levers and watches what happens. But there comes a moment when hiding feels smaller than standing. A moment when he realizes that no matter how clever he is, someone else is still setting the pace. And so, he steps forward, out of the background, out of the safe position, into the light. Level 4, the commander. The commander does not simply understand the board. He becomes the hand that moves it. At this level, thinking is no longer enough. Observation is no longer enough. Now, everything comes down to decision. He leads through his presence before he ever speaks. When he enters a room, people feel a shift. Conversations change. Energy tightens. Eyes turn, not because he demands attention, but because he carries certainty. In a world full of hesitation, certainty feels like gravity. The commander does not wait for perfect information. He knows that waiting too long is also a decision, and often the worst one. So he chooses. He sets direction. He draws lines. He accepts the consequences. This is the level of builders who turn ideas into structures, founders who turn sketches into companies, leaders who turn confusion into movement. When something breaks, they are the ones people look at, not to explain it, but to fix it. Power at this level is no longer quiet. It is visible, and visibility changes everything. When you stand at the front, you become a target. Every success is noticed. Every mistake is remembered. Every weakness is examined. Praise gets louder. Criticism gets sharper. The commander learns that leadership is not about being liked. It is about being responsible. When things go right, others celebrate. When things go wrong, the weight falls on him. Late nights, heavy decisions, calls that no one else wants to make. He carries the tension between what people want to hear and what needs to be done. And that tension never truly goes away. At this level, strength becomes a performance of its own. He must appear steady even when he is uncertain. He must appear confident even when he is tired. He must stand tall even when the pressure bends inward. Because the moment he shows too much doubt, the ground beneath him starts to shift. Followers hesitate. Rivals step closer. The structure begins to shake. The commander learns that leadership is a form of exposure. You give up privacy. You give up comfort. You give up the freedom to fail quietly. Every move leaves a mark. And yet, there is something deeply human about this level. For the first time, the strategist is no longer just reacting to the world. He is shaping it in real time. He sees people grow under his guidance. He sees systems change because of his choices. He sees paths open that did not exist before. But with that power comes a quiet exhaustion, because carrying direction for others means rarely having someone to carry it for you. The commander stands at the front of the line, which means, when the storm comes, he is the one who feels the wind first. The shadow. After standing in the light for so long, some people grow tired of being seen, tired of being judged, tired of being watched, tired of carrying a name that everyone has an opinion about. So they take a step back, not into weakness, into quiet. Level 5. The influencer. At this level, power changes its shape. It no longer raises its voice. It no longer points a finger. It no longer stands at the front of the room. It whispers. The influencer understands something most people miss. The strongest force in the world is not pressure. It is direction. He doesn't tell people where to go. He makes certain paths feel natural. He doesn't fight opinions. He builds frames that make some ideas feel obvious and others feel strange. He studies the spaces people move through, the rooms they enter, the conversations they join, the screens they look at, the stories they repeat. And then he adjusts the lighting. A word here, a question there, a pause at the right moment. Small things. But small things, placed carefully, change how a whole room feels. At this level, arguments become unnecessary. Why debate when you can define the terms of the debate? Why demand agreement when you can make disagreement feel uncomfortable? The influencer understands that most people do not choose freely in open fields. They choose inside hallways. And the person who designs the hallway decides where the doors will be. Machiavelli once wrote that people see what you allow them to see, not what exists behind the curtain. The influencer lives behind that curtain. He becomes a background presence, a trusted voice, a familiar name, a quiet advisor. He lets others take the stage. He lets others claim the spotlight. And from the side, he shapes the story they step into. But this level carries a private cost, because when you spend your life adjusting how others see the world, you start to lose sight of how you see it. When every conversation becomes a strategy, honesty becomes risky. When every relationship becomes a position, closeness becomes complicated. The influencer learns how to become what others need him to be. Calm for the anxious, confident for the uncertain, agreeable for the powerful, mask after mask, role after role. And over time, a quiet question appears, not about control, but about identity. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you are not guiding, shaping, or adjusting? Because influence is a subtle form of distance. You stand close to people, but you do not always stand with them. The influencer becomes skilled at reading rooms, reading moods, reading moments. But sometimes he forgets how to sit inside a moment without shaping it. There is a strange loneliness here, not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being unknown. The influencer can walk through a crowd and feel powerful, but he can also walk through a crowd and feel invisible in a different way. Because no one sees the person behind the role, they only see the effect. This is the quiet tension of the shadow level. Power without recognition, impact without attachment, presence without a name. And for some, this is enough. But for a few, it opens a new question. If I can shape the room, what would it mean to shape the world that builds the room itself? The blueprint. Almost everyone stops before this point, not because they lack intelligence, But because they still care about winning, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to move faster, climb higher, stand above someone else. But a few people grow tired of the climb itself. They begin to notice something deeper. Every victory happens inside a space someone else created. Every argument happens inside a structure someone else designed. Every success depends on rules that were written long before they arrived. And that realization changes the question. Not, how do I win? But, who decided what winning even means? Level 6, the architect. At this level, power steps back so far it becomes almost invisible. The architect is no longer focused on people. He is focused on the patterns that move people. He studies how money flows through cities, how ideas travel through cultures, how habits spread through generations. He looks at history not as a list of events, but as a set of repeating designs. Rises, falls, cycles. He sees that most conflicts are not accidents. They are features of the systems people live inside. So he stops trying to change minds, one by one. Instead, he changes the environment where minds are formed. He builds platforms that decide what gets seen, institutions that decide what gets rewarded, frameworks that decide what feels normal, rules that decide what feels possible. While others argue over moves, the architect shapes the board. He thinks in decades, not deadlines, generations, not headlines. A single choice at this level can echo through thousands of lives, and that is a different kind of weight. Because the architect rarely sees the full result of his work, the system grows beyond him. It adapts. It changes hands. His name may fade, but the structure remains. This is intelligence that does not chase memory. It becomes memory. There is a quiet humility here. The architect learns that true creation is not about control. It is about designing something that can survive without you. A school that still teaches after you are gone. A platform that still connects after your voice is silent. A rule that still shapes behavior after your name is forgotten. But there is also a strange distance at this level. When you work with systems instead of individuals, faces become numbers. Stories become trends. Lives become data points on a curve. The architect must constantly remind himself that behind every pattern is a person. Behind every structure is a heartbeat. And yet, he continues, because he sees what most never notice. The world is not only made of moments, it is made of designs that shape moments. This is the blueprint level, the place where intelligence stops reacting to the world and begins quietly writing the world's instructions. The stillness. There is a level most people never hear about, not because it is hidden, but because it cannot be displayed. You can show wealth, you can show power, you can show influence, but you cannot show detachment. It only reveals itself in moments when nothing is being gained or lost. Level 7, the sovereign. At this level, the chase ends. The sovereign is no longer trying to rise above others, shape others, or leave a mark that will be remembered. He has stepped out of the hunger for position, out of the need for applause, out of the fear of falling. This is not the level of more. It is the level of less. Less need to be seen, less need to be right, less need to be ahead. The sovereign moves through the world lightly. When action is required, he acts. When stillness is required, he waits. He does not force moments. He meets them. You cannot threaten him with loss because he does not define himself by what he owns. You cannot tempt him with reward because he does not measure his life by what he gains, not because he has mastered the world, but because he has made peace with not needing to master it. Machiavelli wrote about fortune, the unpredictable current that carries events forward, no matter how carefully we plan. Most people fight that current. They swim against it, exhaust themselves, and call the struggle strength. The sovereign does something quieter. He studies the flow. He feels the direction, and when he moves with it. This does not make him passive. It makes him precise. Like water, he adapts without losing form. He can become still as a lake or sharp as a wave, depending on what the moment asks. There is a strange freedom here. No role to protect, no image to defend, no story to maintain. The sovereign can enter a room and leave it without needing to change how he is seen. He can win without pride. He can lose without collapse, because neither outcome defines him. This level is not cold. It is clear. The world's noise still exists: ambition, conflict, desire, fear, but it passes through him instead of lodging inside him. He listens without absorbing. He sees without clinging. He acts without becoming trapped by the result. And in that space, something rare appears. Inner sovereignty. A sense that your center does not live in titles, systems, followers, or victories. It lives in a place that cannot be taken. This is why this level feels almost invisible. There is no performance to watch, no symbol to point to, no proof to offer. Only a presence that does not rush, a silence that does not feel empty, a stillness that does not feel weak. The sovereign does not stand above the world. He stands within it, untouched by its storms. And for those who reach this point, the final realization is simple but heavy. The highest form of power is not control over others. It is freedom from the need to control at all. Where are you? So now the question isn't philosophical. It's personal. Are you drifting, performing, strategizing, leading, shaping, designing, or learning how to stand without needing any of it? Most people live between the second and third level, aware enough to see the game, but still playing for approval or advantage. And that's where systems prefer you to stay. Because architects are rare, and sovereigns can't be controlled. If this didn't just entertain you, but unsettled you, that's a signal. Awareness always feels uncomfortable at first. If you're still watching, you're not here by accident. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to go deeper beyond what can be shown publicly, click the join button. That's where the quiet conversations happen. Drop a comment and tell me, which level do you think you're on? Because the most expensive lie you'll ever believe is the one you tell yourself.